I want to begin by repeating an acknowledgement I made in the last reading, or during committee stage rather, that the members on the other side, I'm sure, are concerned about victims. Mr Robertson, Mr Hipkins made interesting and informed contributions, and I want to acknowledge them. Mr Speaker, 3 strikes was one of the ACT Party's major policy planks at the last election, and it was number 1 on the list of policies that we wished to advance in the confidence and supply agreement agreed with the National Party. I'd like to start, Mr Speaker, by thanking the National Caucus as a whole, the Ministers of Justice, Police and Corrections and the Prime Minister for honouring the commitment in the confidence and supply agreement, both in the letter and spirit. I'd particularly like to acknowledge and appreciate the Prime Minister's openness of mind in being prepared to look at the evidence which showed that including a qualifying sentence in the definition of a strike would have been fatal to the bill's purpose and have made it ineffective, and I pay tribute to him for that. I would like to thank Dr. Jennifer Walsh, an American academic who prepared a very comprehensive submission and came to New Zealand at her own expense to appear before the Select Committee and to speak to any member of the Cabinet who wished to speak to her. Dr. Walsh has provided invaluable help to me and to us in providing information to counter the misinformation about how the policy has worked in the 26 United States that have laws of this kind, and also very useful ammunition to counter the misinformation promulgated here, which, interestingly, is exactly the same kind of empty rhetoric that was seen in California in 1994. Mr Speaker, in my maiden speech, I said that I came to Parliament to try and make New Zealand a better and a safer place. And I truly and sincerely believe that this bill is a major step forward in that regard. Contrary to what has been said on the other side of the House and by some commentators, this measure is not contradictory to the drivers of crime initiatives that the National Party wish to advance, but rather complementary to it. Mr Speaker, may I offer an analogy? Imagine that our justice system, our criminal justice system, is like a person suffering an acute overdose of drugs and in dire shape. In that situation, one saves the person's life first and worries about where they got the drugs, who sold it to them, or why they felt the need to take them later. The imperative is saving the person's life. Mr Speaker, in this bill we have sent a message that repeat violent offenders have a choice. They either change their ways of behaviour or they condemn themselves by their own choices to spending most of their life in jail. It's their choice. Mr Speaker, again, contrary to what has been said on the other side of the House and elsewhere, this bill is not about locking people up and throwing away the key, and it never has been. I will re-emphasise what the Minister said, Mr Speaker. The only people locked up for life under this bill will be persons who've committed murder as a third strike, or the worst of our murderers, people like Graham Burton, William Bell, Liam Reid, and sadly, a number of others whose names are less well known. This law is about protecting victims. I'll say it again, Mr Speaker, it is about protecting victims. Since the election, 4 more people have been killed by persons who would have been 3 strikers and thus in jail had this bill been in force at the time they committed those killings. 4 more lives tragically lost at the hands of repeat violent offenders who, for the most part, if not all of them, are beyond rehabilitation. And we need to face that, Mr Speaker. Contrary to Ms Dyson's contribution, Mr Speaker, we say that there is absolutely no doubt that the policy will work, and it'll work in one of 2 ways: incapacitation and deterrence. The only question is how effective it will be. Incapacitation, Mr. Speaker, will put behind bars those who cannot and will not alter their behaviour, and it will protect society from them, and the other side pay lip service to agreeing to that's where they should be. The other way the bill, or the act as it will be and very shortly will work, is by what is known as general deterrence. Deterrence of others. Mr. Speaker, I put on record again that no one will be happier than me personally if there is never any third striker locked up. I'll say that again. No one will be happier than me if no one is ever exposed to the full extent of this regime. But sadly, the reality is that within days, or possibly within hours of this bill passing, someone will commit a first strike offence. The reality is that that person will probably be someone who already has a lengthy record of violent offending. When that person is convicted, the media will report the first strike conviction, I have no doubt, and possibly the several after that. When the second strike offender gets his final warning and a lengthy sentence, that will be big news too. And Mr. Speaker, all the criminals will know about it. And they know about it now because, contrary to what the other side thinks, they're not stupid. They may not have university degrees or even finished high school, but they know about cause and effect as it affects them. All the criminals will know, Mr. Speaker, in 5 or 6 or 7 years, when the third striker goes away for 14 years if it was an ag robbery, or 20 years if it was sexual violation, the crims will know about it. Just as they know today when a child sex offender has been convicted and which prison he's going to turn up in. They know. They're not stupid. They know about the bill and this bill and its effects, sir. We know that because we were told in Select Committee. An earnest young man came along and told us how terrible it was, how the criminals didn't think, they didn't understand the consequences, and then without seeming to realise what he'd said, he said, but when I was in Parry last week, I was amazed that of the 75 criminals I talked to, they all knew about this bill. And I said to him immediately, did they know about the Malaysia trade bill that we were debating last week? Of course they did not, because it didn't affect them. This bill, Mr. Speaker, is not for the criminals. It is for all the victims who have gone before and for all those who will now not be victims as a result of this law being passed. And sadly, there are so many. This law says to John and Val Hargraves and countless others who have lost loved ones, your loved one did not die in vain. He or she helped to spark a change of direction of our criminal law. I say to the parents or mother of Emma Agnew, who I've met, your daughter did not die in vain. I say to the parents of Fitzgerald Rosati, a Samoan choir boy, literally out celebrating his birthday when he was stabbed to death by a scum gang member looking for a patch. Your son did not die in vain. Mr. Speaker, contrary to the predictions from the other side and elsewhere, this bill is not the end of justice as we know it. It is not the end of compassion or justice. It is a turning point. It allows us, having dealt with the overdose, to focus on the children of today's violent offenders and try and ensure that they don't follow their father. It is, in fact, a great day for New Zealand justice. Thank you.